be able to speak to you. Ray, am I up? Good. I love a captive audience, so I certainly want you to be able to hear every word I utter. The message today is one I've used bits and pieces of through time, but in the past week sat down and put it together in a comprehensive whole that hopefully will have some meaning to you and help you along in your spiritual growth, in your spiritual journey. I first heard about it in 2010, reading a book by Dana Zohar on spiritual maturity and spiritual IQ. How many of you took a typical IQ test in elementary school? Didn't you love them? The multiple choice. Finally, you ended up just guessing, but getting so many right. And then you were kind of tracked, or it was determined how successful you would be. And then you surprised them all and far surpassed it. Well, it was only until the late 1990s that it was determined there's more than one type of intellect that lends itself to success. How many of you had a grandmother that said, "He's smart as a whip but doesn't have a lick of sense"? You remember that saying? Okay, there is something to that. Intellect is great, and it's wonderful to have, particularly in the academic situation. But there's much more to the full personality than cognitive reasoning and cognitive ability. There are two strong intelligences called spiritual and emotional that are particularly found in this kind of environment. Now, initially, they were not defined nor used in a spiritual environment. They were in the corporate world. Corporate business, in order to develop the best training packages possible, started looking at attributes of great leaders, leaders who had been very, very successful. And the kinds of comprehensive abilities they found were very spiritual in nature. So today you have one-upmanship on others because you already are truth seekers in a spiritual community. So let's define spiritual intelligence. The ability to behave with wisdom and compassion. Listen to this part. While maintaining inner and outer peace regardless of the circumstances. And that's where I start having my problem. I don't find it difficult to behave with wisdom and compassion because I know right from wrong. I know what is good human relations and what is not. But it's not always what I'm really feeling like I want to do. Because the wisdom and compassion I'm extending forward may be about a situation that occurred that makes me very angry and upset. Okay? It's also the innate need to connect with something larger than yourself. Now, all of you, I'm sure, have had my experience. From a small girl onward, I've always had this inner urging for knowing something greater, for knowing something more powerful, an inner spirit urging that moved me forward. That is my divine essence that I was born with. The more often I shield myself from it, the less able I am to keep in touch with it. But the more I commune with spirit and have my spiritual practice, the more open I am to that yearning, and it pushes me forward. But what is an emotional quotient? This one is even a little more difficult. It's self-awareness and key self-management. Knowing how to read others, how to bring out the best in others, how to contain our own humanistic desires and quick effect to a situation that's occurring, and to fall back onto our higher consciousness. I see inside of myself this pivotal point. Okay, there is my personality. It's that Peggy that was developed through all my interactions in my social, emotional, and physical world. The teachers I've had, the parents I've had, the society I grew up in, any kind of religious beliefs I've had, they've developed my personality, and it's often ego-driven. It's a survival kind of driven reaction to life. But then there's my individuality. It's that pureness of God within me that never changes and always is there. Unfortunately, I find that my personality is much times far stronger than my individuality, and my first gut reaction when I start to exhibit wisdom and compassion towards others is my humanism gets in the way. And I get angry, I get resentful, and often that overclouds my wisdom and compassion or my desire to be spiritually mature. So in looking at this topic, I looked at individuals who have been very successful, not only in the spiritual sense, but in the corporate world. And these are some of the characteristics. And this is why Dana Zohar identified spiritual maturity and spiritual intelligence as an equal intelligence to IQ for success. First of all, they model spiritual principles and core values. Now, those of you who have been in Unity for a while could tell me immediately the 5 core principles. Could you not? Ed, couldn't you? Yes, I know you could. As chair of the board, I knew you could. So what does that mean? That means Peggy recognizes at all times there's but one power in the universe, and it's God the good. Peggy recognizes that she was born with that goodness within her and needs to keep in touch with it. She realizes that her thoughts are powerful, and what she thinks is pulled towards her, is drawn to her. So she needs to be careful about her thoughts. She knows that that spiritual essence within her needs to be highly tuned at all times, and that comes through prayer and through meditation. And to be a truth student, she must walk her walk at all times. So one of the primary characteristics of a successful spiritual and corporate leader was in modeling their spiritual principles and core values, a sign of spiritual intelligence. They are self-aware. I learned this in a message one time, to entertain myself by being my small self in the back of my mind and observing my behavior. If you've ever done this, you may be shocked. Okay? Peggy, did you say that? Did you actually react that way? Where are you coming from? How old are you anyway? Try that for a day's period of time. You'll find it an interesting activity and a very revealing activity, but just be that little self in the back of your mind and listen to what you're saying and what you're doing. It will be very enlightening, and it will help you become self-aware. And spiritually mature people are very self-aware. Not just aware, but they use that awareness to their spiritual journey. They build trust through integrity and authenticity. Have you ever sat in a lecture and wondered at the end, what in the world did that person say? They used so many words, they got off on so many tangents, that you were almost dizzy trying to keep up with them. A person of integrity, and some of this is Peggy White's gospel, and authenticity is someone who speaks truthfully, honestly, and directly. And sometimes I tend to have an economy of words. I don't necessarily say that's best, but I also say that many things can be said without a lot of flowery comment, and you get the message across quicker. And you can also, of course, enhance that with music, poetry, and whatever else. But integrity and authenticity are characteristics, spiritual characteristics, that many successful leaders have. They are people who inspire and motivate. They want other people to get excited like they are. They want other people to discover the truths that they discovered, especially through Unity experience. And they want to motivate them to move forward. I know Barbara, Fred, and I teach the SCE classes here, and there's nothing more exciting to see the light bulb go off in someone's head or over their heads or in their eyes, and know they're excited because they've discovered a Unity principle that answers a question in their lives or an urging that they've had for many, many years. So they are people who inspire and motivate. Once again, a characteristic of spiritual intelligence. They foster transformation. Let's say you're sitting in a class or a message, and you heard a sentence or a phrase, and it urged something in you, it piqued something in you. And so when you get out to the gathering space, you might ask me or Richard or someone else who's been here for some time, what did that mean? And a person who has high spiritual intelligence will take time to help you discover and explore that concept so that transformation can occur. A truth seeker, a spiritually mature person, wants everyone to get the most out of life possible. They mine the treasures within others. There were so many children when I was a principal that came into my office who had no idea what they were capable of. Life had somewhat beaten them down, or they had been exposed to situations that were somewhat negative, and they had no confidence in themselves at all. But just my watching them in play on the playground and in the cafeteria, you could see talent galore in these young people. A person of spiritual maturity mines, M-I-N-E-S, that in others, helps them to grow and encourages them forward. They are coaches and mentors. They are people who do not mind helping someone else find their way. They seek out and embrace change. Okay? That one's causing the hackles on my neck to rise right now. Change is tough for me, as it is for many people. But change brings about a better way of doing things as a general rule. And if not, you reframe, you restep, and you move forward again. They guide and help others cope. There are some people in this congregation that I'll readily go to for prayer and for coping skills because I've watched them in their own lives overcome great diversity, overcome hardship. A person of spiritual intelligence helps others to guide. Our prayer chaplains are excellent examples of that. They foster shifts in consciousness. They want everyone to understand and to grasp hold to a better world, a better universe, a better way of seeing things. And when they see that little light bulb go off, or they hear someone ask a question, they are first right there on the forefront to answer and to give them references and to help them move forward. They lead others to try new things and together shape a world that works for all. What keeps you stuck any more than doing it the way Grandpa and Grandma used to do it? I remember my grandpa was the last person in his neighborhood, not the last person, he never did have indoor plumbing. Didn't believe in it. Everybody else had it and enjoyed it. Can you imagine such a thing, not having indoor plumbing? If he'd only allowed himself a hot bath and a commode trip once in his life, I believe he would have been convinced. But no, not ready to embrace any kind of change. Look at those characteristics and think about the people you've been exposed to in your life, whether in family, on the job, in church, or in the corporate world. Did they model spiritual principles? Now, these are successful people I'm talking about. Were they self-aware? Were they authentic and full of integrity? Did they inspire and motivate? Did they foster transformation? Did they mine the treasures in others and help others seek a higher consciousness? Were they willing to try new things and shape a world that works for all? Do you see all the beautiful spiritual principles that are contained in those characteristics? And yet they were originally developed for the corporate world. Isn't it wonderful to know that spirituality permeates all sectors, most all sectors of our world? Let's look a little closer at the individual spiritual and emotional characteristics that you can be aware of, because I'm going to give you a task for this coming week. When you observe yourself as that little person in the back of your mind this week. First of all, as a spiritual being, you are self-aware. You know that you are connected. I know that when I look out and see you, my heart is connected to your heart. You may be a different color, you may do a different shape, you may come from a different part of the world, your background, creed may be very different. But when I see you, I see that Christ light in you. I see the very best of you. I know that you and I came from the same source of being, and as such and as children of God are equal in every way. That's a spiritual principle for a spiritually mature human being. It's the capacity to go out and face diversity and to use difficulty as a lesson. This is one that has been hard for me in my spiritual journey. When I am meeting a challenge, particularly a very difficult one, I have this conversation with God. God, I've been serving you since I was 6 months old. Why do I have to face this challenge? Have I not learned this lesson? Can I not graduate from this? Well, no, a spiritually mature person knows that that is what life is all about. That's how we develop a higher sense of consciousness, a higher spiritual understanding. It's through facing controversy, working through it, keeping our connection to spirit as we work through it, and coming out on the other side much wiser, maybe a few more wrinkles, but much wiser and much better able to cope with life as we know it in this world today. They're also holistic. They're interested in the earth. They're interested in other cultures. They're interested in recycling. They're interested in people's spiritual growth. They have a connection to the world that spreads outward into the universe and touches all people and all things. Spiritual intelligence is part of that characteristic. It's the courage to be oneself, to be independent. This is kind of hard. There are times when I am in a crowd, a social crowd, and it's usually not unity because I feel very comfortable with unity, but I'll slip off to the side and become a wallflower because I feel very incompetent to be in that particular group. Well, a spiritually intelligent person, a spiritually mature person, knows how to stand in their own right, knows how to be independent in a crowd, knows to be confident about who they are, whether you say anything or you don't say anything. You stand forth and be ready to stand for who you are at any time. It's accepting diversity and enjoying the differences in others. One reason I love unity so much. We are so diverse. We are quite a cast of characters. And that's what makes us so beautiful. Think about it. Sometimes when I'm lying in bed and can't go to sleep, I think about you. And it puts me right to sleep, No, I do, and I smile because I think about the beauty in each of you, and you're so very different. And if it wasn't non-professional, I'd call some names right now. If it wasn't not the way to be, I'd call some names and express that. But you are all so very different, and when I bring your face in front of my mind's eye, I appreciate and love those beauties that are you. So a spiritually mature person, and obviously I have that one because I certainly do appreciate you and see the beauty in you, no matter what the circumstance. It's the ability to reframe. Listen to that one a moment. To reframe means taking that which you don't understand, which hasn't been a part of your past or your upbringing, and reaching outward to find out what is involved in that before making a decision, before setting that foot down and saying, no, I will not. Find out what it is the other person is saying. Reach outward, then make your decision based upon your convictions. And being spontaneous. And that doesn't mean impulsive. That means being spontaneous, which means living in the moment. Being fully who you are with the person that you are with at that time. So you can both be authentic, be in integrity with each other, and appreciate the beauty in each other. Those are special spiritual attributes I want you to be looking at in yourself this week as your small being. Then what about the emotional? The emotional has more to do with you personally. It gets a little closer to home. The first one is self-awareness, knowing yourself, being able to observe yourself, and having confidence in who you are. It's also self-management, which is the more difficult. Self-control, being honest, being authentic, being able to adapt, That's a tough one. When you're a person of strong conviction and someone steps on your toe, steps on your conviction, it's hard to be authentic, to be open, and to look at both sides. People who are emotionally mature have tremendous relationship skills. They help others develop, they inspire, they influence. They are good team members, and they're able to manage conflict. Now, what does that mean? Let's say Debbie and I can pick on her. We've been together all weekend. Anything that hasn't been said yet won't be said. It'll be okay. We were here for a wedding yesterday together, and we had several side comments while we were waiting for dresses to arrive and all kinds of chaos that goes along naturally with weddings. And near the end, I was getting a little perturbed because they were taking forever to get the sanctuary back in place for today. And I could have said to Debbie, would you please finish cleaning up those rose petals, because I need to go home and work on my message for tomorrow, and it's just taking too long. Now, I would never attack Debbie. I have tremendous respect for her. But she may have thought, well, that girl, I've been here helping her for hours, and here she is complaining because I'm not picking up a rose petal. And she may see Heather this morning and say, Heather, can you imagine what Peggy did to me yesterday?
Yes.
Okay. I asked for that one. And Heather says, no, what? And so she begins to explain, and Vicki walks by, and they call Vicki over. Well, pretty soon I've got half the congregation ready to vote me out of the church. Whereas, if we manage the conflict as it should have been done, Deb would say to me, Peggy, when you said I should move along a little quicker, da-da-da, you hurt my feelings. Did you really think I wasn't giving it my best? Well, immediately I would have straightened up and in humility have said, I am so sorry. I was so frustrated with that group trying to get them organized and out. I spoke quickly, and I am so sorry. And she says, well, Peggy, I knew you didn't mean any harm, and I love you too, and we would have made up. And half the church wouldn't have been involved. That's called agreeing and disagreeing in love. An emotionally mature person manages conflict in that way. And it's also, and it's more, as much as important as any of the others, is awareness of others. When you're in a group, and I know most of you are this way, you can sense when someone's hurting. You know, when before the message today, someone said, Peggy, you have that nervous look. Well, for goodness sake, of course I have that nervous look. That is a natural attribute. But the fact that she was aware and offering to console meant all the world to me, and suddenly all my nerves somewhat settled down and my heart stopped beating so fast, and I became more at ease with what was going to happen because that person was aware of me. Spiritual, emotional maturity brings that to you, being aware of others and also wanting to serve others in all ways. Now, these are some tall orders to fill as a spiritual being. But there's a little task I'm going to give you this week that will help you build your spiritual skills in this respect. So the objective is to have wisdom and compassion, but to maintain inner calm as you do, to follow that innate desire to move forward to a higher consciousness, as well as to self-manage yourself. Okay? So this is what we're going to do. I've done this with some other subjects before, but this particular one is good. You're going to have a bank account in your mind. You have this bank account, and you're going to make deposits this week. And those deposits are going to contribute to your emotional and spiritual maturity. And the more you put in that deposit, the stronger those skills will become, and the easier those skills will be to access. In fact, you'll be much more likely to pivot towards your higher consciousness than your humanness when you're making decisions. All right, this is a kind of easy deposit you can make, and the more you make, the greater your emotional and spiritual maturity will grow, and the more easy it will be to access them. The first one is simply giving compliments. Ronnie, giving compliments is a good one. Whenever you see someone, it takes only a moment, and you need to be authentic with it. Authentic compliments. Like, yes, that smile you had this morning when I came to church, it's just what I needed to settle down. And it was simply a smile. Stoplight, smile at the, probably shoot you, but smile at the person next to you. It will probably surprise them, but it will be a deposit into your spiritual account. Keeping promises, that's very important too, particularly to children. Well, adults too. We all want to be able to depend on others, and it's so disappointing when we don't follow through. So keep your promises. Deliver your work on time. Okay? That's homework as well as work, as well as any kind of teamwork at church, whatever it is. You are depositing into your spiritual, intellectual account when you deliver your work on time and when you do quality work, not just get by work. Going above and beyond requirements. Most people I know in Unity give at least 110%. Your bank account will grow. You will become rich in your understanding and use of spiritual maturity the more you put these kind of deposits in. Anticipating what someone needs, just like a friend this morning realized I needed calming down and acted upon it. There are a couple of you that if I walked up to you after this service, you would immediately know what's happening within my heart and mind. There's some people with that technique, but it came from practice. It came from looking at people, stopping long enough to touch someone with your words and your heart. And after a period of time, it becomes a practice to you, and your spiritual maturity grows. Being sensitive to personal lives. That means you don't need to know everybody's business. Show interest, show respect, but don't inquire. Just say, I'm here to talk if you need to talk, or I'm here for prayer if you need to pray. And the last one on my list today, it's very simple. It's simply to smile and say hello. Most of you in Unity have beautiful smiles and good teeth. So when you exercise a smile and a greeting, it warms people up immediately. And the one I need to add, because I have had a lot of foolishness going on this morning, is a sense of humor. A sense of humor adds so much to a spiritual lifestyle. It lightens things up, it lightens people up, and it allows you to say some things you might not otherwise be able to say, and they be taken in a warm and giving spirit. Now, there's some way to withdraw and to delete what you've just done. Okay? Criticizing. Now, you don't do that. No one criticizes. I didn't hear a word of criticism the entire time I've been here today, have I? No. You don't want to withdraw from your account. You've worked so hard all week watching yourself and put in deposits. You don't want to take away. Breaking promises is another way to affect your account. Poor quality work. No, not a Unity person. Ignoring others. Now, that's a fault I have. I will get task-oriented. I'll have my mind on what needs to be done next, and I'll go right by you as if you don't exist. That's very spiritually immature of me to do that, and it withdraws from my account. Don't let that happen with you. What is more important? Stopping, looking into the eyes of one of God's children, or getting the thing done on time or ahead of time. And I'll keep saying that to myself so that I will change, I promise. Another is being rude and not making eye contact, related to the one I just gave you. Another is poor body language. You're standing here like this, and the other person is trying to relate to you something near and dear to their heart. What does this tell them? It tells them that you are closed, that you are locked off. Spiritual maturity? No, you don't want to withdraw from your account. What about this one? Talking about others. Not in this group, no. But if ever you slip, realize it does detract from and subtract from your account. Another important one, too, and I've been guilty of this one also, although I try very hard, and that's betraying a confidence. When someone says something to you in confidence and they are trusting you, think about what a gift that they are giving you to trust you with that confidence. Keep it just that. Now, I will be asking you next Sunday how your bank account looks, okay? And I want you to smile, look me right in the eye, and say, I'm way ahead. I am saving like crazy. I'll be ready for retirement. But keep that in your heart and mind. Let's continue as Unity True students to increase our spiritual understanding, to become more mature spiritually, to become more mature emotionally, and let that old IQ test go by and be the best you can be. Thank you.